Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions in the worlds of pop culture, sports, social media, everything really. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on Twitter I go as PD Beats. My guest is an MMA fighter currently fighting for the UFC in the middleweight division. We are with Derek Brunson. Derek, welcome to Popternative.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. Just an icebreaker question. When did you kind of decide that fighting and mixed martial arts was something that you wanted to do?
Funny enough, I kind of fell into mixed martial arts. A little bit after I wrestled in college, wrestled in high school, and I got my degree, was working a few years, and I kind of had the urge to compete again. I wanted to initially wrestle, and I kind of fell into a gym who only had amateur MMA fighters, and I started training with them as my wrestling partners, and then I just started taking striking, jiu-jitsu, and, I kind of fell in love with MMA quick and had my first fight soon after.
Absolutely, and we were talking, you just got off a fight against Elias Theodorou in Ottawa, UFC Ottawa event, and that was a fight that got a lot of buzz on social media. I don't think a lot of people were expecting the type of fight it was. I mean, there was a big slam, but it was a big victory for Derek Brunson.
Yeah, it felt good to get back in the win column. Elias is a guy who liked to take his time out there. I think if he looked back on the fight, he probably wished he got started a little bit sooner, and I guess I'm known for, going out there kind of like rushing things, trying to get guys out of there. So I'm constantly trying to evolve and change my game up and have different approaches. So, tend not to do the things that I did in my previous fights, just to change it up a bit.
Has there been any, after the fight, what was kind of that 24 hours like? Was there any interaction with Elias afterwards? Was there any social media, good fight, man? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, I chatted with him a couple times. He asked about training together. And I told him, yeah, we definitely can do that. He's one of the guys who, he was 17-2 coming to the fight, so piled up a good record, 9-2 in the UFC. I mean, that's hard to do. That's very hard to do. So I definitely respect his skill set, and he's one of those guys that it was refreshing for a first fight in a while that I just kind of fought unemotional. And I think going forward, definitely gonna be my style. Just go out there and just fight, take my time, and just the knockouts will come. He's a guy who's to take his time and move back a little bit. So most guys want to stand in that pocket and trade. So the guys who want to trade with me, I feel I got the speed advantage. So definitely get the knockouts with those.
That's really cool. The possibility to train with someone that you just fought. That's interesting. And that brings up a question I wanted to ask you about misconceptions in UFC and MMA. Everyone thinks they know everything that you guys have to deal with and go through the training. What are some misconceptions or things that people assume about UFC fighters that you kind of will be like, well, that's complete opposite. That's not how it is. Is there anything that you can think of, Derek?
Well, I guess people would think that all fighters are want to fight all the time, want to go to bars and fight, or just meatheads or just a-holes, I guess you would say. But nah, I think that's a misconception. Most guys are pretty even kill. The sport has evolved to where it's purely competition to most. People go to the gym, train real hard, and they go and they spend time with their family. So everybody's living that family life and not really straight meatheads looking to just beat people up. It's competition to us.
Talk about the evolution of UFC in the last 5 years, with social media becoming a big part of it. The production has been becoming bigger and bigger with some of these big events, these pay-per-views. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective as a fighter in the UFC.
Yeah, it's been huge. I've been in the UFC for about 7 years now, and it's grown a lot, especially I guess the old school guys can definitely attest to it too, is the money that they made and the eyes that they had watching opposing now. And social media is just taking off. So we got a lot of eyes on the sport. Guys can make their career in 1 or 2 fights now. All they need is that one explosive highlight or one good fight.
Absolutely. You've seen a lot of UFC fighters, they fight, but they also do other ventures as well. They do TV, they do film, they do movies as well. Is that something that you have thought about doing down the road? Maybe when you're done fighting, maybe getting into TV or film? Is that something that you thought of?
Well, absolutely. I don't like to limit myself. And I've done a little bit of stunt work here and there, but definitely, want to keep the options open and expand on what I'm doing, and use my my media, my fan base to do that.
What do you think of that that kind of transformation of and that relationship between UFC and pro wrestling? Because there are UFC fighters that go to pro wrestling. What does Derek Brunson think about that?
I don't know. I used to watch pro wrestling as a kid. I don't really watch it too much anymore. But yeah, whatever people want to do, I guess, the physique, the macho-ness go hand in hand. Obviously WWE is like purely acting. I guess from a fighter to go from MMA to WWE is like it's like a dream, in the sense of you go from still getting paid and you're not actually getting hit. Like, it's a pretty good trade-off.
No, it is for sure. Who is Derek Brunson like in the ring or the octagon when he's fighting? Who are you in the ring and who are you outside of the ring?
Outside of the ring, I'm a family guy. I like to just chill, relax with my family, just spend as much time just being a dad. When I'm in the octagon or when I'm in training camp, I'm like, beast mode, just training, trying to make sure I capitalize on these moments and, just bring the intensity to my opponents and make sure that, they feel what I'm about to bring to them.
Absolutely. The video game world is huge. It's growing every year. EA Sports, the UFC video games, you know what I mean? And you've been in those video games for many years. What do you have you ever thought about that? Like, wow, like someone could actually kind of control me and use me as a fighter in a video game and control the outcome? Because I always thought that was a really cool thing, seeing yourself in a video game.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started, that was my thought, It's kind of, I guess you get a little numb to it or after being in a couple. But yeah, at first I was like, man, this is straight cool, instead of being a downloadable character, being actually on the one that they sell at the stores. It was a cool feeling.
What are 3 words that you can describe about mixed martial arts? Like, if someone was saying like, what is mixed martial arts on MMA, UFC all about? What are 3 words that you could describe mixed martial arts with?
Competition, intense, and hardworking.
And I guess those are 3 things that you can kind of say about yourself because you love to compete. It's very intense when you're out there as well, and the hard work, it's a given, right?
Right.
What do you kind of think about? Have you thought what's kind of what is the timeline like once you finish a fight? When do you kind of start thinking about the next step? Is it a lot more time than people think, or sometimes does it motivate people to want to get a fight sooner than later? What is that like for UFC fighters?
Yeah, it's funny. When I finish fighting, I'm like thinking about the next fight, and it's fun. And it's always my agent like, hey, let's calm down. Because it's a lot of fights that once you fight, it's other fights that go on. The UFC is always pumping out fights. There's a lot of fights. So once you fight, there's probably another fight the next weekend in your weight class that's close to you, that's meaningful to you. You guys are on the same timetable. So it's about just sitting back, letting things happen. Guys have fights lined up. If it's a fight that's available for you at the time, then you can quickly get it booked. But, generally, being me, it's only a handful of guys that I can fight. Being that I'm, ranked and I've been ranked for a while, the UFC like to pair ranked with ranked. So just sitting back, watching, seeing some fights and then going from there.
I have a couple quick questions too for a wrap up because I know it's busy time, but two-part question. Part one, you've had a lot of opponents in the past. Which has been kind of your favorite fight or the coolest opponent you've been involved with, and who's someone that you maybe want to challenge or a dream opponent that you haven't had the chance to fight that's on the list for Derek Brunson?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't know if I consider cool an opponent in the same. I guess in order to be a cool opponent, you'll have to win that fight. I don't have too many losses. I have some losses. And maybe, let's see, somebody I would want to fight that I haven't fought. I don't know. You got a guy, Joker, Jack Hermanson, I believe is his name. He's sitting in the 5 spot. That'd be a good fight. I would like to have that fight. So that's a guy I haven't fought that definitely I have some eyes on currently.
And is it the thing too is like how important did you play other sports growing up as well?
Yeah, I played football, wrestling, track, and I was a cheerleader for a couple of years.
Oh, very
cool. I did a lot of sports.
So how important is that then for athletes to play other sports? Do you kind of see that as an important thing growing up?
Oh yeah, definitely. Each sport demands a different thing, different. Putting your body in different positions. So you play a lot of sports, and you're gonna have a lot of your body. You're gonna be aware with your body. You're gonna be aware of what your body can do. So it'll be good. It's good for your body and your mind to compete in all different types of sports, to bring it to one sport per se.
Absolutely.
Be phenomenal at one sport.
For sure. And very quickly, what is some advice that you have for up and coming MMA fighters that maybe want to get into the ring?
Man, don't miss training. You better train as much as you can, because all of those hours that you're training are in preparation for a 15-minute fight or a 25-minute fight. So if you skip training or miss training or haven't been pushed enough, it's going to show in that fight.
Absolutely. Well, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. Where can people follow you on social media and keep up to date with Derek Brunson?
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Derek Brunson. Also, type in my name, Derek Brunson, on Facebook, and follow the page also.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Derek Brunson and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.